Welcome to another episode of Growth Hacker TV. I'm Bronson Taylor, and today I have Dan Harris with us. Dan, thanks for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I think everyone should be aware of this, but just in case they're not, you are the co-anchor of Nightline and the weekend edition of Good Morning America, but most recently you authored the book 10% Happier, which in my mind is really a book promoting meditation written by a skeptic. Does that sound about right?
That's exactly right. It's written by a skeptic for skeptics.
Yeah, which it appeals to me. But before we jump into this, I want to tell our viewers why a conversation about meditation makes sense for Growth Hacker TV. Typically, this is a show about business growth, but let's be honest, business growth is an extension of personal growth, and that's why this conversation we're going to have, I think, is so important. So let's start at the beginning. It seems like your thesis starts with the idea of the voice in your head. Unravel that for me. What is this voice in our head that you're talking about?
I think it's an indisputable fact of the human condition that we have this voice in our heads that chases us out of bed in the morning and is yammering at us all day long, and it has us constantly wanting things or not wanting things, judging other people, comparing ourselves to other people, thinking about the past or thinking about the future to the detriment of whatever's happening right now. And I think it's true that when you're unaware of this nonstop conversation you're having with yourself, it yanks you around. It's why, you're eating the 18th cookie or checking your email in the middle of a conversation with somebody else or losing your temper when it's strategically unwise. So this is, for me, one of the most key insights of my entire life, because once you are aware of this, you can manage it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because you give it a name, the voice in your head, but once you start thinking about it, it's obvious that it's there. Now, everyone has this voice inside themselves, but do you think that people that are very driven, like anchors or entrepreneurs or sports professionals, do you feel like that their voice is somehow amplified or different? Because the voice in my head feels strong.
I think everybody's, it's hard for me to know because we only have our subjective experience, but I suspect everybody's voice is strong and loud, and there are just different inclinations. I I hear from people all the time, you don't understand. I can't meditate because my mind is just so crazy. I've got so many things going on, and I call this the fallacy of uniqueness. We think that we are uniquely busy upstairs, but that is just the human condition. Now, for those of us who are sort of type A driven folks, ambitious folks, I think we may have a certain sort of pattern of thoughts, but I don't think it's as I don't think it's louder per se than somebody who's got different issues like shyness or whatever.
Yeah, it makes total sense. So, we all have to try to deal with this voice in our head. And there's some, constructive ways to deal with it, and there's some destructive ways to deal with it. What are some of the destructive ways that people deal with this voice to try to cope with this incessant thing inside them?
I mean, well, I can just speak from personal experience.
Please do.
I got to ABC News when I was 28 years old, so that was 15 and a half years ago, and I was really green and self-conscious about being green. I was working with these giants in TV news like Peter Jennings and Barbara Walters and Diane Sawyer, and my way of coping with that was to become a workaholic. I mean, I was already a workaholic, but I just, I went on steroids. And then after, not long after I got to ABC News, 9/11 happened, and I sort of raised my hand to go overseas and cover whatever happened next, really a lot of it was out of sort of blind ambition. I mean, I don't want to run myself down too hard because there was some idealism there too. I believe that it was really important to as a journalist to be at the tip of the spear and to tell Americans what was being done in our name. But a lot of it was about just really wanting to succeed, and I spent many years in war zones, and when I came home from a particularly long run in Iraq in 2003, I got depressed And I actually was insufficiently self-aware to even know that I was depressed. I was having trouble getting out of bed. I felt like I had a low-grade fever all the time. And I did something incredibly stupid, which was that I started to self-medicate with recreational drugs, including cocaine and ecstasy. And that led to me having a panic attack on national television. So that's a good
I wasn't going to bring it up unless you did.
Say that again.
I said I wasn't going to bring it up unless you did.
Well, I talk about it all the time, so it's not sensitive. It's not like awesome, but it's not sensitive anymore. I think of that little yarn that I just told you as like a case study in mindlessness, where you're just being yanked around by this conversation of let's go to war zones without thinking about the consequences. Come home and get depressed and without really even knowing it, and then reach for the easiest possible solution. And the antidote to that is mindfulness, which is the fruit of meditation.
Yeah. And you've really discovered in your own journey that, like you just said, meditation tames this voice. What does it mean to tame the voice? Does it go away? Does it say different things? What does it mean to be tamed?
Taming, it's easy to get the wrong idea. You're not going to stop all of your thinking. The voice in your head is still probably going to be a jerk plenty of the time. So it's not going to necessarily change the types of things you are telling yourself all the time, but it will change your relationship to them. So that is the key, that is the internal judo move that is the game changer. So one way to think about this is like a waterfall. If you think about the mind as a waterfall, and the water is the sort of nonstop stream of consciousness, mindfulness is the sort of space behind the waterfall, which allows you to kind of step out of the traffic and to view the contents of your consciousness with some non-judgmental remove. And this is not something I'm just making up. We are classified as a species as Homo sapiens sapiens, the one who thinks and knows he or she thinks. So we have this innate ability to sort of to view what's happening in our squash with some non-judgmental remove, and mindfulness is just tapping into that innate ability. And so it doesn't mean that you're not going to have lots of judgmental thoughts about other people as yourself, or you're not going to apply this sort of internal cattle prod to yourself to build your business and hit benchmarks, et cetera, et cetera. It's just that you'll be able to see when your thinking is useful and when it's useless. I like to talk about drawing the line between useless rumination and what I call constructive anguish. And that has made a huge difference for me as a professional.
So it's almost like thinking about thinking, the Homo sapien sapien idea, and by removing yourself one layer deeper, going behind the waterfall, you're not just your thoughts, you're above your thoughts, and you're in control still.
Yeah, I would tweak that slightly, because it's not just thinking about thinking. We have this ability to be just aware of stuff without thinking. So you're aware of the feeling of your butt on your chair right now, but you weren't thinking about it until I pointed it out.
Yeah.
So we have this innate capacity of just this natural awareness, but most of the time it's clouded over by this nonstop churn of discursive thought. And so what mindfulness and what meditation is doing is just getting you in touch with this ability you have to just be naturally aware of things and to apply that to the thought process so that you're kind of out of it. It's like pressing the picture-in-picture button on your TV. All of a sudden, the story that's taken up the full frame can be seen with some perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, meditation has helped people anecdotally for thousands of years. This isn't something new. But one of the things that interests me most about what you're bringing to the forefront is what the scientific research is now showing us. Do me a favor and unravel some of the things that science is saying about meditation in the clinics.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up, because I'm always aware that people may be inclined to say, well, you're just a TV guy, what the hell do you know? Which is fair enough. So don't take my word for it. I mean, I think what really got me over the hump in terms of getting interested in meditation was the fact that there's now been this explosion of scientific research. I'm going to get into it in a second. I just want to issue one small caveat, which is that this research is really in its embryonic stage and is in danger at times of being overhyped. Nonetheless, I think what we're seeing is that that this growing body of evidence strongly suggests that there's like a long list of tantalizing health benefits associated with meditation, including lowering your blood pressure, boosting your immune system. It helps with things like ADHD, age-related cognitive decline, depression, anxiety. It's even been shown to help with seemingly unrelated things like psoriasis and irritable bowel syndrome, which of course have stress components. And really, what the coolest part, the sort of sci-fi part, is that neuroscientists have been peering into the brains of meditators and even just beginning meditators. And what they found is that when you meditate, even just as a beginner, you're changing your brain. You're making your brain bigger, and you're changing key areas of the brain. So one study from Harvard in 2011 took people, complete novice meditators, and had them meditate for 8 weeks. And at the end, they found that the areas of the brain associated with self-awareness and with compassion, the gray matter literally grew.
Like physically grew.
I know, it's amazing. And in the area of the brain associated with stress, the gray matter literally shrank. So it's pretty powerful stuff. Again, we're at the early stages of this research. I don't want to overpromise, but it's intriguing.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, the science is what gets people like us to start. But you don't continue to meditate because you think your prefrontal cortex is changing. You continue to meditate because you're less of an asshole and to yourself and others. And that's where the rubber hits the road.
No, absolutely. I mean, it has to be practical end of the day. So, even some very large corporations now have meditation rooms, and they're really embracing meditation for their employers. What are some of the logos? What are some of the brands that we would recognize that are doing things in this area?
Huge brands. Google, Twitter, Aetna, General Mills. I mean, these are the people that make Hamburger Helper. They have meditation rooms in every building in their corporate campus in Minnetonka, Minnesota. I'm asked to speak at major corporations all the time. I've spoken at Kohl's. I know Target does some meditation. Goldman Sachs has been doing it. It's now also catching on in the sports world. Like Seattle Seahawks have a meditation coach. I hesitate to use this example because they're not a great team, but the New York Knicks. But Phil Jackson has a pretty good history with the Lakers and the Bulls, and they were all meditating. And also, just one final example, it's definitely taken off as well in the U.S. military. Both the Army and the Marines are spending tens of millions of dollars to look at whether meditation can make troops more effective and more resilient. So there's a lot of evidence that it's good for you, and a lot of evidence that people that we all sort of emulate and respect are using this as something that can help them gain an advantage.
Yeah, and my next question, it really gets to the heart of what appeals most to me about what you're putting forward, is the 3-step process that you give us for actually meditating. And the reason I'm drawn to it is because until I saw your description of meditation, I thought it was always something about namaste or certain sounds or certain religions. Like, it always had this kind of, context to it that didn't appeal to me in some way. And then I read your 3 steps and I was like, oh, well, I can do that, and I do that sometimes, and it totally works. And so walk us through your 3-step process for meditation.
So a couple of caveats. I know I'm full of caveats, but first of all, the word meditation is a little bit like the word sports. It describes a whole range of activities. People have been meditating, as you accurately pointed out, for thousands of years, and there are lots of different flavors. When I talk about meditation, I'm talking about mindfulness meditation, which is the kind that has been studied the most in the labs. So it's not like it's a 3-step process. The beginning instructions involve 3 steps, but I didn't make it up. This is 2,600 years old. This mindfulness meditation is derived from Buddhism, but it has been thoroughly secularized. If you want to do mindfulness meditation, you don't have to wear robes or light incense or sit in a funny position or believe in anything. And if you do happen to have pre-existing religious beliefs, this is not going to get in the way of that. It's just exercise for your brain. Really, is the way to think about it. So just to prove that, to get to the 3 steps that you mentioned, and you don't have to do it right now, but the 3 basic steps are to sit in a comfortable position with your spine straight. I say that just because it helps to not fall asleep if your spine is reasonably straight. Most people close their eyes, but you don't have to. The second step is to focus your full attention on the feeling of your breath coming in and going out. So you're not thinking about your breath, you're just feeling. You're just generally aware of what it feels like when your breath comes in and goes out. And it helps to pick one spot to focus on. Usually that's your nose or your chest or your belly. And then the third step is the key, which is as soon as you start to do this, your mind's going to go nuts. You're just going to start thinking about, what am I going to have for lunch? Why did I say that stupid thing to my customer? Why did Dances with Wolves beat Goodfellas for Best Picture in 1991? Whatever. It doesn't matter. Your mind is going to go bonkers. And the whole game, and this is the whole game of meditation, is to notice when you've become distracted and to start again and again and again and again. And you're going to have to do it 1,000,000 times over the course of a minute. And that's fine, because every time you do it, that is the bicep curl for your brain. And it shows up on the brain scans. It is that skill of noticing when you become lost and starting again, which is what shows up on the brain scans. And I believe one of the biggest problems facing meditation is not just that what you mentioned before about the idea that it involves all this sort of namaste hokiness or religious dogma, which I think we can now be pretty thoroughly disabused of. The real public relations issue now is that people think I can't do it because I can't, quote unquote, clear the mind. But you don't have to clear the mind. Clearing the mind is impossible unless you're enlightened or dead. The point is not to sort of go blank. The point is to focus the mind for nanoseconds at a time, get lost, start again, get lost, start again, over and over and over again. And you can do that. Anybody can do that.
Yeah, and I love the way you said it's exercise for the mind. Do you think when it's put in those terms, just the extreme practicalness of it is what's going to allow it to catch on in the future?
I think that is what is allowing it to catch on. It's the 3 S's. It's the simplicity, the secular nature of it, and the science behind it. And I think that's why we're seeing what I believe is the next big public health revolution, where in the not-too-distant future, people will think about mental exercise the same way we now think about physical exercise. I make this joke all the time that if in the 1940s, if you told somebody you were going running, they probably would have said, "Who's chasing you?" And that's because physical exercise was not a common thing. But then what happened? The scientists swooped in, they proved the manifold physical and psychological benefits of physical exercise. And now we all do it, and if we don't do it, we feel guilty about it.
Yep. So let me ask you this. Why is your book titled 10% Happier? Why not 50%? Why not 100%? Why such a modest title?
I mean, it's a joke, mostly, but it's a joke with a purpose, which is to counter-program against what I think is the sort of reckless over-promising of the larger self-help industry, where you're promised these panaceas and you can solve all of your problems through the power of positive thinking or whatever. That's just not going to happen. It's completely irresponsible. And if that was possible, we wouldn't need so many books. You just put it in one book. The only people I know who got all their problems solved through those kinds of books are the people writing them. And so I have a real sort of gag reflex in response to a lot of what I see out in the self-help culture, and so this was a way to distinguish. And it's, as I said, it's completely a joke, but it's accurate enough.
Yeah.
Because meditation is not going to solve all of your problems. It's not, as I say all the time, it's not, I've learned this the hard way. It's not going to make you taller or regrow your hair. But it does change your relationship to the problems, so that you're not, when good things happen, you can actually enjoy them because you're not like racing off to the next thing. And when bad things happen, your resiliency is boosted because you're not, going down the rabbit hole of useless rumination as much as you used to. And I also believe, along the lines of this 10% thing, that it is 10% that compounds annually. This is a skill. meditation is a skill, and you get better at it. And so I've been doing it for 6 years, and I'm much better than I used to be. I mean, I still suck, but I'm much better than I used to be. And the implications for my life are, commensurate with my ability to actually do the practice.
Yeah, I like that idea of it compounding annually. That makes it exciting. Now, not only do you have the book, you also have an app that you've come out with, which I love. I'm going to download it as soon as this is over. I didn't know you had an app. Tell me about the app. What does it do? Who needs it?
So, after I wrote the book, some of my friends in the meditation world leveled a pretty good criticism at me, which is, so I got, the book did reasonably well, and people were getting excited about meditation who'd never really considered it before, but I wasn't doing much to actually help them do it. In the back of the book, I have some meditation instructions, which, for some people is actually enough to get started. It's actually the way I started. But as it turns out, really, if you want to have it to be sticky, it helps to have access either directly or remotely to teachers who are teaching you how to do it. So me and a group of really amazing, the best meditation teachers in the world have gotten together, and we teach you how to do it. And not only do we teach you the basics, but we're putting up a bunch of different courses that show you how to apply the skills of mindfulness to big issues in your life, like how to communicate effectively, how to... there's an interesting course about the sort of self-interested case for compassion. In other words, it turns out people who are more compassionate, which some of us think of as sort of as inherently a weakness, actually people who are more compassionate are more successful, more popular, and healthier. So we have courses about that, but primarily what we do is we give you the basics of mindfulness meditation. We get you up and running, and when you sign up, you get a coach. Somebody to whom you are accountable, somebody of whom you can ask questions at any point. Mm-hmm. And that really, if I had this app when I started out, I would have progressed much faster, because there is something about listening to somebody walk you through the basics of the practice every day that really just keeps you connected and not getting lost down all sorts of cul-de-sacs that are possible when you start meditating. Sure. So you can get started for free on this thing, and in fact, you can really get, this is bad for our business, but you can, before you have to pay, we teach you enough that you can have an abiding practice on your own. We'll get you up and running, and you don't have to give us anything, and you'll get your basic meditation instructions with a sense of humor, and you'll get your coach for the length of the free trial. And then if you want to sign up for our subscription service, you can go ahead and do so, and you'll be able to stay in touch with your coach, and you'll get all of our incredible content. Yeah,
which is another nice change from the self-help gurus. They always charge up front. So to say, hey, I'm going to give you a lot of value, and then you decide what you want to do. It goes along with the 10% happier idea. To find the app, do they search for 10% happier in the app stores, or do they need to search for something else?
So right now, we are in Apple App Store. You can just search for 10% happier meditation, whatever, you can get us. And if you have an Android, you can get a version if you just go to 10percenthappier.com. So you can get a web-enabled version there, and we will have an Android app in the not-too-distant future as well. Yeah. We're a startup, so in fact, we're prime audience for what you're doing. In fact, our CEO is a huge fan of yours. So we're very much at the beginning of this and trying to build something that's useful for people. So we really want to hear feedback, and in terms of what you're saying before about the free trial and the difference with the self-help world, I'm a capitalist. We're a for-profit company. We hope to be a really big company because we think this is a huge market. But we also this is an interesting area because we also have ethical commitments built right into the DNA of the company. And so what's most important to us is teaching people how to meditate and how to meditate well. And so there will be, as we build this company, there will be sort of, that will be built into it, not only with a free trial, but also with giving the course away to people who need it. Also allowing our users to donate and things like that. So
Yeah.
it's a bit of a complex business in that way, but I firmly believe it's going to be a big business.
I love businesses like that have a double bottom line. You have the capitalist bottom line, but there's something else that matters also. I don't think we have to pick one. I think some businesses can thrive at doing both, and I hope yours does. This has been an awesome interview. There's so much here for entrepreneurs. I know the voice in my head is strong. I know I need to stand behind the waterfall more. I know that it's going to help me. I hope in 6 years I'm where you are with it. So I'm learning a lot personally from just studying you and this interview. And I know the people watching are going to feel the same way. Let me end with a couple questions that I ask all our guests. Kind of fun. The first one is, what are you working on right after this interview? Could be boring, could be awesome. What's next?
The voice in my head is kind of debating what I'm going to do next. There are three options. I will either go to the gym, I will meditate, or I will take a nap.
It sounds like three good options to me. All right, second question. I love that you have talked about you're a capitalist and you're building this company, that you're not just an author and a news anchor. So what is the best advice you have as a capitalist for any company trying to grow?
Well, I want to say I'm a beginning capitalist, so I would be very reluctant to...
it's like meditation. We're all in practice.
Yes, well, that's true. Except for I'm such a rank amateur at this point, which is why I'm glad I have an experienced CEO and an experienced team. Well, I will say this: consider how mindfulness can help you as an entrepreneur, can help your country. Well, country, yes.
Sure.
Actually, that was a Freudian slip because I do think it can help the country, but how it can help your company. Mm-hmm. Because I think building this into this is a phrase I used before, but building this into the DNA of a company can make a more effective company. So that one that isn't like a soccer team of 7-year-olds with 45 kids all chasing the same ball at the same time and just running around like chickens with their heads cut off. I think that this builds in a certain level of centeredness, calm, empathy that can really boost effectiveness. I would just say one thing on that note, that if you're a boss and you're thinking about bringing this into the workplace, I would do it in a non-compulsory way. Mm-hmm. I would do it as a voluntary thing. At ABC News, for example, we offer meditation both daily and also we have an experienced teacher that comes in once a month. It is completely voluntary. There's no peer pressure. It's just there for you if you want it. And I think that's the way to do it. Preaching about meditation or forcing it on people is extremely annoying, and in a corporate context can feel coercive.
Yeah, and depending on how people view it, might even be illegal. So you have to tread lightly. Dan, this has been an awesome interview. Again, thank you so much for coming on Growth Hacker TV.
Thanks, Bronson. Great job. Appreciate it.